Hey, read through the word. Today is September 6th, and today's lesson is called Hope. We are in 2 Kings chapter 25, verses 27 through 30. It says this: In the 37th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin of Judah, Evil-merodach ascended to the Babylonian throne. He was kind to Jehoiachin and released him from prison on April 2nd of that year. He spoke kindly to Jehoiachin and gave him a higher place than all of the other exiled kings in Babylon. He supplied Jehoiachin with new clothes to replace his prison garb and allowed him to dine in the king's presence for the rest of his life. So the king gave him a regular food allowance as long as he lived. The end of the book. There we are. So, I want to explain a little bit of this last chapter in 2 Kings. Really tells us a lot of information. And as I tell my English students, there are 4 levels of reading. And if you're a nerd like me, there is a great book by, let me see, is it back here? I'm looking for it on my bookshelf behind you. Yep, there it is. It's the author's last name is Adler, and it's called How to Read a Book. Because as I tell my students, I ask them why, how when you read, Ms. Nance tells you to go read this, and you read it, how are you reading it? And I had a student who was real honest and said, to get it done. I said, yeah, to check the box. And I said, okay, that's elementary level reading. There are 4 different levels. At my point, I need analytical reading. And so I have to guide them from this to this. And then if you want to become an expert on something, that's what leads you to level 4, which involves research and stuff. So a lot of times, if you're reading this chapter and you're reading it at a level 1, and we need to be at a level 3, I need to slow it down and take in. So the way I do this is exactly what we do here. But the way I do it with my students is I said, okay, go home and read and take notes. And then I check their notes and we discuss their notes. And if it was a book of your own, I would say, because your notes are basically your discussion with the author, and would be like in a novel would be marginalia. Taking notes to discuss with the author. Why is this? What does this mean? So I guide my students into taking the basic questions and answering them as they're reading. So on a piece of paper, write who, what, when, where. Now, the why and the how takes a little bit deeper. And for my purposes in a classroom, the why and the how is what I add in for them. I help them and I guide them into that next section. But the why and the how, it's what I do a lot here in my lessons, is I try to connect some things and help us understand an overarching story and what this means. So that's what I want to do today. But the who, what, when, where, why, who, what, when, and where is a little confusing in this chapter, because really it goes like that, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on in that chapter. But it's the end of the story of the people before they go into exile. So let's talk about some who and where and all that kind of stuff. And when. Okay, who. You have Nebuchadnezzar, who's king of Babylon. We know good old Nebby K, as old VeggieTales would have called him. Nebuchadnezzar. You have Jehoiachin. He became the king after Jehoiakim. And he only reigned for 3 months. And Nebuchadnezzar took him to Babylon in exile, right? Okay. And then what's set up after that is a puppet government. So like King Zedekiah, Nebuchadnezzar had already taken over the land and basically set up puppet kings. The throne was, Nebuchadnezzar decided who he wanted to put on the throne. So he took another member of the family, put him on the throne. His name was actually Mattaniah, and Nebuchadnezzar put him as King Zedekiah, and he made him king. And Zedekiah, late in this chapter, rebels against Babylon, and that's they catch him at Jericho, and he has to see his sons killed in front of him and his eyes gouged out. So there's that. And then there's Evil-merodach. Evil is the son of Nebuchadnezzar, and he is the one who will release Jehoiachin from prison. All right, are you with me? That's your who's. Who, what? What? Oh, we're going to talk about basically who, what, when. When. Okay, we are at the magic number in the Old Testament, 586 BC. This is the final destruction of Jerusalem. We're going to see the walls torn down, the temple destroyed, everything over right here. And Nebuchadnezzar, he was a piece of work. And what he did and how long he did it, there was a true method to his madness. He knew what he was doing. And it's just very interesting. I'd love to sit and talk to you about it. So you have that. So that's like the total end of everything. But we had taken years for this to happen. All right, who, what? We'll talk about what in a minute. When, where? All right. So you had the kings of Judah still in Jerusalem, and then the capital of the Babylon, is Babylon on the Euphrates River. So that's where the rest of the people are. So like Jehoiachin is taken from Jerusalem to Babylon. And then from Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar sends and puts Zedekiah on the throne. And then he tries to run away. And it becomes and chaos ensues. Okay. So who, what, when, where, why, how. So we're going to what is going on in this whole chapter. Okay. In Zedekiah, so the first, in chapter 25, we are reading, let's look. Hold on, I'm trying to see. Because you've got Ezekiel in there, and I'm going to just sort of give you a short synopsis of where we were and where we are. So as you had been reading in chapter 25, you see like Zedekiah is king. He's been king see, here's the thing. Things are going by like this in the reading. But Zedekiah had been king for 9 years by the time Nebuchadnezzar, and after he rebelled, after 9 years, after he rebelled and decided, I don't want to listen to you, Babylon, then Nebuchadnezzar comes in and attacks Jerusalem for 2 years. He lays siege. And it's like, it caused great misery. Everything is awful. There is no food to eat in the city. It is awful. So, the walls are broken down, the city is breached, and people try to escape. And then that's when Zedekiah tries to run away. And then Zedekiah's sons are killed in front of him and his eyes are put out, which I've talked about that before. So everything in Jerusalem is burned. They tore down the walls, and then they carried, this is the final, there's 3 waves, 3 times that people are taken from Israel Judah, to Babylon. This is the last one. So this is the last one. And then the temple is burned, and everything that was in the temple is carried off to Babylon. And we'll see that show back up in the book of Daniel. And, but all the bronze, all the silver, all the gold, everything's taken, including the stuff that sat outside the holy place. So, and Nebuchadnezzar, then he kills the high priest. He kills any kind of government or officials that he found into the city, and Judah is taken out. But what Nebuchadnezzar did was left all the poorest people. He didn't take them. He left them in the land. And then he appoints a man to be governor. Well, then some of the people in the land get mad about that, and they kill the governor. And then Nebuchadnezzar does not take that, and is like after the people. So a lot of people escape to Egypt to try to get away with this, because they feared what Nebuchadnezzar was going to come do to them, because someone assassinated the governor he had put over it. So, then we have the rightful ruler on the throne. This whole lineage we've been following since David sat on the throne is Jehoiachin. He's it. He is the rightful ruler. Now, here's the thing. We don't get this, but God does tell us in here, slowly tells us time things that we should have been paying attention to. 37 years after taken into exile, King Jehoiachin is then, by Nebuchadnezzar's son, brought back into, treated kindly, sat at the table, all of these things. And then is told, there he is sitting there, and then the book ends. And we're left, but what? Okay. So remember all the way back when this king stuff happened with Samuel. We want a king like all the others. And boy, did they get one like all the others. How'd this whole king thing work out for them? And no one loyal to God. No, I mean, these glass kings they're just out for themselves. The people had rejected God as their human king. And God let them have what they wanted. And we see where this leads. So we've followed the story of Judah and of Israel and Judah. And we learned that their kings are horrible, and they lead them into like obliteration and to exile because of what they're doing. But they were never the king that God wanted them to have. His desire was for him to be king. And he had given them, like, okay, I want to give you a type of king I'm looking that you deserve. It's me. But they rejected it. And this is where it leads. But I want us to see that where this leads us with hope. Because the story of the Bible, of that Davidic covenant, an eternal throne, an eternal kingdom, and an eternal king, is still there. This last verse in this book is to remind us, oh, but what about, think of it as a movie. If you saw this as a movie, I think we'd see it a little bit better. That all this time has passed, and we think, okay, that the king of Judah is just going to sit and rot in a prison. And then all of a sudden, you're given, oh, there he is. He's good. Everything's okay. You mean that God's not done with that line? That there will be that king we're looking for? This promise he's given us? Yes. And we'd go, oh, there's hope for the people. That's it. And his name's King Jesus. But this last verses in this book give us hope that after all of the horrible kings and horrible decisions and things that these people have done, and they're out into exile, God is not done. He keeps his promises. So if you look at all the what, the why, because God keeps a covenant. He's made a promise. And in every promise of God, Jesus is the yes and amen. And we're going to see that when we go into the New Testament at the end of this month. Well, not really the end, 3 weeks in. The 20-something is the week of the 20. Usually around 23rd, 24th is where we hit into the New Testament. But it is, the people had rejected God as their king and they messed up their nations. But God is going to return to his people in flesh in the New Testament to show them that he is the only one capable of being their king and leading them and what the kingdom of God looks like. So all of this ends with hope. God keeps his promises. So we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.